Okay, let me show you a few more things here in Photoshop. So here, here's an image, interesting image. Remember, as I told you, hopefully you'll be collecting images that have some kind of interest to them when you uh, you know uh, tend to manipulate them and such. You don't want to pick boring party pictures. You may pick party pictures, of a bunch of people hanging out or whatever. There might be interesting elements in there, but if you can either pose yourself or have a friend pose for you. Try to be a little more creative in the poses that you collect, and I highly encourage you to find original uh, poses and original imagery that you use. Try not to rely on others to be creative for you. And so, if you do see an image that is interesting, like say this one right here of this young girl throwing the Rubik's cube up in the air, maybe replicate that. Find similar surroundings or situation, and kind of pose in the same way, and have a digital photograph taken of you, and then you can import that into the computer, and then use that for your original design. And that's what I would hope that you would begin doing, is relying more on yourself and less on others. Or when you do, just like when you're writing a paper, you know, if somebody's written a book on a certain subject that you want to take little parts from and to incorporate into your paper, your research paper, you take those parts, you either quote them, or paraphrase or reword in order to make it your own language. And this is what we want to begin to do as designers and artists, is to be influenced by the world, but bring it into your own work by being original, or bring those outer influences into your work in a way that is uniquely your own. And so that's what we're hoping that you are beginning to try to accomplish in your designs, in your compositions. So here we have an image of a young lady, and it's you're just seeing what Photoshop does. And so I just want to show you a few more techniques or a few more tricks that you can use in Photoshop in order to make a very interesting design. So here we have the image, and so what we want to do, let's isolate here. That's kind of one of the first things it's the best things to do. And so let's just go in, and I'm using the magic wand tool, and let's just select her body here, and I pretty much have her whole body there selected. There's a little white here on the outside. Whoops, undo. That's fine, we can get rid of that in a second. But we have, I'm just getting that little dot there. Okay. We have that all selected, and we can either delete it out as such, which is fine. Let's delete that out, and then what we can do, I'm going to simply get the marquee tool and just go on either side of her, and let's just go up a little bit higher to give it a little added depth and dimension. Edit and crop. As I told you, you could get the crop tool right here or the marquee tool. It's either way. So what we want to do now is we want to select her and duplicate her. So let's do get the magic wand, hit in the white area. We want to select the inverse. We selected the negative in order to get the positive. I'm going to hit copy, and then we're going to paste that in. So now we have two of her, right? Let me just show you so you believe me. Bum bum. Okay, we got two. Now we go back. So what can we do now with this image? Right now it's flat. It looks kind of paper dollish in the way that the edge is. There's things that you can do. We can, if we didn't deselect a second ago, let's select the inverse there. We can go up here to filter, blur. We can blur the shape here. Whoops, we don't want to do select inverse. Let's go back. We can do blur shape, and here we go. We can blur the edge there a little bit. Let's deselect so it doesn't look so flat. We can add drop shadows or whatever it may be that you want to do. So we can double click here. We can add the drop shadow. We can make it go a little bit more behind her, so it's not so it doesn't look so fake, for the lack of a better word. So here we have her. We have it on two separate layers. So let's add a little background, and we're going to do different things. We can add. We could actually grab from this, the brush that we did here. So let's grab this and throw that on. Let's put it into the screen here. You can say it's obstructing her, so let's put it behind her. We could transform that. Let's spin it around here to look like the leaves are, flying around. If you wanted, a little grass there behind her as well. We could duplicate that and add a little bit more of the patterning to her. Now remember the layer effects. We could actually put that layer on top, and then we could do a blending technique on it. Let's see if we can get one that's interesting. I don't know if any of these are going to look that interesting. Let's go hue, color, luminosity. One thing you can do, pull that layer back up to the top there and have it, let's go underneath there. Oop, I want that one to go on top. There we go. We can have it interact with this one a little bit more. We can put her on top there. Have those all behind. You kind of lose the Rubik's Cube there just a little bit, but hey, those are options you have. Let's take those off. We can pull in a background. Let's pull in a background here. Let's see, we've already used this one, but let's use it again. Let's put her back up on screen. Let's put this up in the top corner here. And Control T, free transform. And let's pull this down here. Lock that in. And then we'll pull it behind her. Maybe kind of interesting. Hold on, let's do one thing here. Let's see, let's pull it up here a little bit more. I think that's kind of interesting there. I like the lines a little closer together rather than further apart, and I think that's kind of interesting there. And it's nice how that loops around and happens to hit right there on a Rubik's Cube. That wasn't planned. That's just something that happened, and I think that's kind of interesting. We can bring back the leaf effects there too. We would just have to bring that underneath the leaves on the layer, so we have all that interacting together there. One thing that's nice is to duplicate these layers, and so let's duplicate it. For all else, if something else fails, just duplicate the layer. We have her here duplicated, and one thing we could do is let's add let me first show you one thing here. One thing that's kind of interesting is we can go in here and go to hue saturation, and if we wanted to, we could desaturate her and take the hue all the way down. Whoops, the hue is not what I wanted to grab. Hue means color. Darkness, we'll take it all the way down. So it becomes like a silhouetted form, right? This is something that I will show you if you haven't watched it already in the radial design tutorial. I show you how to make silhouetted forms so that you can, here we can pull it behind her, and let's hit the V tool, and we can move it over so it looks like a shadow, so like she's casting a shadow somewhere behind her, or somebody's watching her in the corner there, in order to make a greater distance behind her. Let's bring it back up to the top there. Another thing we can do is we can apply gradient to that. Remember, you can load your gradients. Let's load gradients, and let's go ahead and add a couple here. Let's load a few more there. Let's see if there's anything that might be interesting here. Let's grab this one might work. Actually, that one might be kind of interesting. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select the silhouetted form here and go back to my gradient. Let's pull that out. Let's see, I want it to go the other direction. Let's Control D, deselect it. And then we can have that, go across the body there a little bit. Let's see, multiply. She looks unhappy there with those colors on top of her. Let's see if there's anyone that's interesting here. Overlay. Once again, I'm just going through. I don't know. I don't really have a planned direction in this. I'm just gonna, play around with it and see if there's anything that, that one looks kind of interesting. Remember, you can always play with the opacity too, to lower the opacity a little bit to give it just a little bit of a color. You know, if you could find that interesting, that might be a little strong for to your taste. And let's see what else we have here. Saturation, hue, and color. And we'll try one more, luminosity. And I would say probably none of those were exactly what I would hope for. So let's go back to normal. And let's select her again. Actually, let's go back to when it was selected. So here's the selection. And then let's pick another gradient. And what kind of gradient? Let's get closer to those colors if I have it. Maybe we have some better pastel tones. Let's click pastel. A pen adds 2 here. And let's do some soft little powdery colors there. Let's see what that looks like. I'm just going to hit a couple here to see if anything that looks interesting to me. And once again, I probably picked a color that may not be the best for this one. Control D. It's not too bad. Let's lower the opacity a little bit to see. One thing you can do also, here we have this selected. We could add elements like we can like stylize it, diffuse. Let's see what we have here. Let's go at cancel here. Hold on one second. Let's go artistic. Select colored pencil. If you have CS2, what it will do many times is, what it will do is give you where you can actually see the options here of, we can put a little texture onto it. Let's see, stylize, let's do glowing edge here. See if that has any, that really didn't do anything that was too exciting. So let's hold that there. You can go ahead and hide this layer. And let's duplicate. What I'm duplicating just to show you is, let me turn off these layers here. What I'm duplicating is just her silhouetted form, so I hit duplicate. If you wanted to, say form 2. So we have it here duplicated. Let's go ahead and bring back the colors there that we have going. If you wanted to get rid of the leaves there that we have, that's fine. We have this duplicated. We can go up here and go filter. Let's go ahead and do the glowing edges again. So we went artistic brush, and it was under stylize, right? So we can go back down here. I'm gonna close the artistic. I'm gonna go to stylize. I'm gonna select that one. I'm gonna hit OK. And we have that on here. Now remember, as always, we can lower opacities. We can once again do blend effects. Let's see if there's any ones here that are interesting. I kind of like the way that looks. Let's see, multiply. It kind of gives it a cartoony feel, which is interesting. It's kind of interesting. Let's see, linear. Let's go ahead and increase opacity to full power. And overlay. I kind of like that one. I like the way the colors look here. And so we take what would be, an image like that, and by applying that stylized edge, it gives it an interesting little kind of illustrative form there. And I mean, it's kind of nice. And so if we wanted to as well, let's go to our brushes, and then let's select one. What is this? Let's see. That's a little too. We can just simply hit it in a couple spots there. Adds a little, flame there, a little more texture to the background. We can actually make this a lot smaller. Remember, I'm going to simply hit, here's right bracket, and it makes it larger. Left bracket makes it smaller. Let's actually get a little more lithe one. Let's see what we have here. I want a little swirl pattern. Let's go to the swirl pattern here that I saw. And let's go ahead and see brush tips, shape dynamics. Go over to tips again, and let's increase the spacing a little bit. And let's just kind of shoot a little things in here. And see, the reason they're not coming up that strong is because we have it, of course, going onto the layer with the layer effect. And so if we wanted those to read as we have it on overlay right now, if we wanted those to read strong, we could put those on. And let's go and put everything back up. You can say, well, that's a little too strong, right? So that's why this layer is going to overlay. And with overlay selected there, they're just subtle, they're just subtly there in the background. And so they're nothing too strong. Let's do, to be safe, a lot of times it's nice to go ahead and put those on their own layer, meaning that here we'll say new layer, and just say brush strokes, and then we can come down with the brush strokes. You can see them come across there. I'm going to hit option and hide, and so you can see how I just kind of came down there with the brush stroke. And let's put this back over here. And with those, let's actually we can do a layer effect on those as well. We don't want to darken, hard light. Are they going to do anything exciting? Let's do different. They're not going to do anything too exciting because they're black. But anyway, you can see there, by taking some different elements, adding them, you can make a very interesting and very dynamic image, just utilizing some of the brush tools and your own creativity.